Guys.
Tap.
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
1 2 testing.
Beautiful. Okay, 3 2 1. Hey Al, how are you?
Hey, good Ben.
Another ZENRG finance podcast begins.
Really looking forward to it.
Number 5 it is now. So starting to halfway to double digits.
That's it. And good that we're providing value and adding more content, which is what we want to do with our audience.
Yeah, just try and give people a bit of a helping hand, which we'll have a bit of a discussion about before the podcast ends, about some things that we've got coming up. Some exciting times.
Understatement. It's just exciting. Things are, rates are increasing. There's things happening. But I think it's good to talk about it because now I think it's forever important to have that financial gym happening, Ben.
That's it. You know, get training. You train everything else, and we're told to train everything else in our life. But there's no way to train for to get your finances in better shape. So hopefully by the end of this podcast today, we'll be able to share a little bit of information of what we've got coming up, and how we can help people get whipped into shape financially.
Yeah, I think at the moment with a lot of things from the government happening, there's things you can control and you can't control. And I've been telling my team, it's focusing on things that you can control and creating that financial certainty. And one of my mentors, he released a book, and it's just having those tools and implementing it, which is the most important, taking massive action and getting that experience to become unshakable. I think that's the word that I really want to aim for. If you master these 10 points or the content that we're doing, I feel you feel a lot more certain moving forward in terms of whatever financial stuff that you want to do. Hopefully, we will give you that certainty.
I think it's right though. If you build yourself into a strong situation, a strong position, then barring an act of God, and even some of those that you can insure against.
Correct. And that's that certainty, that unshakable. Even if you die, you can be financially, more for the loved ones. It's not a good, pleasant thing to talk about, but these are the planning to have in place. But
at least you won't be married won't be buried in a pine box.
Yes. And in fact, that's where you talked about insurances. Me and my wife recently reviewed that. So we'll talk about that point and elaborate a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I guess today the topic that you and I have been discussing is building someone's financial fitness, making sure that they're ready to prepare for anything that might be thrown at them, any challenges, and we've come up with a few solutions and a few things that need to sort of take place to make sure that you're in the best situation you could possibly be. So when things do happen, and they always happen.
They do. I'll talk about my past experience.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. Then it's best to know that you've got that peace of mind. Make sure that everything might not be rainbows and kittens, but you put yourself in the best possible situation. I know from personal experience, sometimes bad things happen, and because I hadn't acted earlier, you're in the situation's made worse by where you are. So I think as a responsible person, a father, whatever it might be, a caregiver, making sure you're in the best situation you can be in personally. Not the best situation that someone else can be in, but understanding your personal situation.
Yes.
I think you can feel better about yourself when something does happen. You know that this is the best way you can deal with things.
Yeah, and I think the way best to start, Ben, is knowing where you're at. Are you in a good place? Are you not in a good place? And those that have committed and listened to our 5th episode, probably they want more, someone that wants more, or, your financial shape isn't the best that it could be, and wanting some sort of solution to rectify and take it to the next level.
That's exactly right. So I think, and we've talked about this before, but I truly believe in it. Is first things first, look at your finances be honest with yourself. Create a budget. I think it's the most basic thing that. Well, it sounds basic to me, or to sort of anyone. I mean, I think it's the shtick in every in at least one episode of every sitcom that I've ever watched. You know, teaching someone how to budget, and it's still true now. People get to sort of my age, 35, and have never created a personal budget. So they don't know how to do it. They don't want to do it because it gives them it puts them under a sense of responsibility that they don't want to do. So if they want to go out and buy those, I don't know, what's Nike TNs or something like that cost $700, they don't have to justify it to themselves because the money's just sitting in their account.
That's right. But I think, definitely that's the strategy. Like, and I won't go through it today. One of the big things for myself when it's, embracing this financial journey is definitely the mindset's quite important. But again, we won't focus that because Ben's saying it's a budget. But I think more importantly, a bit before, if you're honest with yourself, because I believe the truth will set you free, is this the symptom or is this the cause, right? When I don't have money, yes, people see it as a symptom, but the cause is I don't have a budget and I haven't stuck to it.
That's right. Yeah,
That's the truth.
No,
right?
It's 100%. And I know personally, when I make a budget and then blow it, something happens and I blow it, I feel bad. Like you know you've done the wrong thing.
But at least you're aware you've blown it, and then what can you do? Like people don't, plan to fail; they fail to plan. But if for that 1 month you failed or you feel like that didn't achieve the goals that you want, but then you got the next 2 months, right? Because I don't know how often that you budget, Ben, but I see people, they look at it monthly or weekly, but sometimes it may be a bit more custom if it's a quarterly budget, right? So a bit more flexible in terms of how you're budgeting because bills don't come monthly sometimes. They come quarterly, right? So even though you overspend, don't hit yourself and beat yourself in the head and say, hey, this is it, and I won't do it again. It's just what's the progress and what have you learned?
And I think it's not even, I think most people will budget from their pay cycle, so if they've got a weekly pay cycle, this is my weekly budget, but then you've got to also take in consideration, like you said, quarterly bills, but then what happens when your car registration's due? What happens when your car needs a service? What happens when you blow the flat, or you get a flat? Or what happens when one of these things that happens every year, these recurring payments comes in? What about council rates, things like that?
Yes.
I think you've got to, you're right there, you've got to expand your horizons to not just think from pay to pay. You've got to take a look at your entire financial situation. Okay, you earn 75 grand a year. How much of that is already spoken for before or after tax, depending on how the way you want to do it? And then work out a plan from then.
And I feel also you're talking about some of the unexpected, which is, the 6 point that we're talking about,
Yes.
like the emergency. We're jumping a bit, but, hopefully we cover the 10 points. It's just a recent example that I had, Ben, that you need to have, a buffer for unexpected expenses. I mean, we own a home and unfortunately the aircon, the compressor blew up and it costs $4,000 something to fix.
Wow.
And my wife was like, hey, it's to fix is 4,200, or would you like to replace for 15,000, right? So it's more around having that budget, or for those that have read a book called like Robert Kiyosaki, in his cash flow game, they call it the doodads, right? So it's the unexpected expenses that you need to buffer for. And that's where you need to have that contingency fund and emergency fund, not just like for aircon. It could be health, it could be other aspects, the kids, like, it could be excursions that happen, who knows, right?
Well, but that being said, the aircon blowing up in Australia during the summer,
yes,
can honestly, if you've got older family members or things like that, can be really detrimental to someone's health.
Yes.
And spending what in Australian summer 3-4 months of 40-degree heat, that can be unbearable. Not just to someone's health, but to people's psychological health. It's not great. And if you can't come up with a solution quickly, that's a big deal.
And that's why coming back to the budget is having that kind of buffer in place, not just budgeting so every dollar is maximized, but have we put some contingencies in place so it's a bit more robust, a bit more flexible? I'm not saying, hey, every month I'm going to have a compressor change. Let's face it. But I kind of like blew my contingency fund for the next quarter or half a year. But it kind of helps with your psychology. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I need to pay for it using a credit card or personal loan. I've counted for that. I knew that's going to happen. It's not the best thing that it's happened. And again, you're in more certainty and control of your finances.
And just to add on to that, I've been in the situation where my car's blown up and I need it, I need it to get to and from, I need it to work, to earn more money. So yeah, I have to then redirect funds from other things. And something like that can take months to recover from, because once you're behind on something, you're always behind the eight ball. You've got to, and you've got to take big steps in order to recalibrate, look at the budget or you rebudget, and you're trying to build onto that. So it's not only just budgeting; it's making sure that you're budgeting the right way, which we're going to be putting some stuff out there for you guys to make sure that everything's accounted for. So that we're going to take a lot of the hard work out of that for you.
And even if it means that, yes, I had that replacement with the air conditioning, but is there other accounts within the budget that can give way? For example, like now the aircons are like, are we going to have more Uber Eats than we used to, or the deliveries, right? Maybe less, right? So it's kind of like reducing from that going out spending, right, to make up for that doodad, right, or unexpected expense. And that's where the flexibility of the budget. I don't want us to be so rigid that this is the dollar and cents that we must be spending. But when you have that, at least you're accounted for, and that flexibility, that's when we'll make the budget work.
And I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into, is they don't want to commit to a budget because they think that a budget means that they can't have any fun. But you can have fun, but you've already planned for it. You know what is available and what's within that budget. But it doesn't mean you can't go out and have dinner or go to the movies and that you're sitting at home eating, crackers every night and, staring at a nice bank account but not really doing anything. That's not what a budget's about. A budget is making sure you're living within your means. You're making your life better for you and your partner and your family. But that you're enjoying life as well, and enjoying life, it means not having to worry when those things do happen.
That's what you got to budget all your like crazy things, the celebration, the trips. That's part of it. So if you designed it well, everything will be incorporated in the budget. That's why symptom or the course. That's a really key thing to take away.
Exactly, and you just brought up a good point there, which we're talking about the big events. Now, I know you've got some articles on the ZENRG website that talk exactly about things like Christmas and celebrating, going on holidays.
Yes.
And there's tips and tricks and things, but creating a budget for that event that works within your existing budgets.
Yes.
That's the way to do it. Don't go, hey, I got a $5,000 bonus at work and just and that's your budget, because what's your favorite saying about failing to plan?
Yeah, well, you don't want to plan to fail.
That's right.
People fail to plan. But hopefully, look, I mean, this is just point one, and hopefully it gives the audience a bit of a, something to think about. And there are ways to resolve it, because I've had a lot of experience and conditioning in myself. One thing is the mindset, like I was talking about, but we won't go through because these are the strategies that if you implement, it'll work. But I think let's get to point two, right?
Yeah.
Or point three, you were saying.
I just think that point three sort of follows up.
Right, insurances.
Yeah, because look, we mentioned a few things that could happen there, such as your car breaks down, your haircut blows up, things like that do happen. But in the end, those are things. To be a little bit more serious for a second, insurance. There's multiple types of insurance, and most of them are there to secure and give you that peace of mind. But there's things like loss of income, if you're injured at work, something like that doesn't allow you to fulfill your tasks. A lot of workplaces will have something in place to help, work cover, for example, things like that. But a lot of that's you're operating at a certain percentage of your usual income, which, as we've just stated, if you've budgeted out and every dollar's accounted for, and you lose 25-40% of your income overnight, it's not going to take you very long to eat into that emergency fund. It's not going to take you very long to sort of burn through any goodwill you have with your creditors or anything like that. So something like income protection, I think is a bit of a must. Home and contents, home insurance. Look, this might sound quite obvious, but I can tell you right now, the amount of people I know who don't have home insurance. Out of personal experience, I live in an area where there's quite a few. It's all acreage. Okay. Now we had this a guy. He moved in down the road. It was a brand new subdivision. He has like 5 acres. Literally built his dream home with his wife and his kids, and they moved in. 3 weeks later, the house burnt down.
Wow.
He didn't have any insurance.
Wow.
So not only was he without a home on what I can only imagine was a very expensive 5-acre property.
Right.
He had no way of claiming it back. He was paying a mortgage on a house that no longer exists. And him and his family had to buy old coaches, like buses, and convert them into temporary housing. That was 10 years. And after about 5 years, they moved into a giant shed out the back that they'd repurposed. But it made me happy not long ago, maybe 12, 18 months ago, they put the finishing touches on their brand new house.
Yeah, sure.
Which stands exactly. But that was 10 years ago. That happened 10 years ago. And he's only just, I don't know if they've recovered from it financially, but they're now in a situation where, now I don't know if that means that he's got to work another 10 years or because the situation that he not having that insurance put him in was, I mean, your heart breaks for the guy. But on the other side, look, it might be an extra couple of $100 a month out of your budget or whatever it might be. But, and you always say it's never going to happen to you. Trust me, I've had a house burned down. It's not fun and you don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that can happen, right? So I think just like insurances, I was sharing that my wife and I review our insurances, right? So it's not something that you should be like, if you're reviewing that you should be canceling. I mean, do you need it and so forth? But I think the income, I mean, we insure our cars, which is a very common thing in Australia to buy because one, you need it, right? I mean, there's different types of insurance, which I won't go into, but as a basic, you need the green slip, right? Which is for third-party injury and so forth.
Yep.
But that's a car, right? Which is a depreciating asset. But if you got an income coming through and you're not insuring that, like, that's just nuts, right? So I'm not a financial planner. I'm not, providing a referral to a different product in any way. I feel it's just a mentor always said to me, it's not how much you earn or how much you have, it's how much you keep, right? So keeping is not just like, yes, the budget, income minus expenses, but do you have adequate insurances to protect it, right? If should anything happen. And I think that's the key thing. But protect is even one thing. One of the learnings is really reading the policy, what you protect it for, right? Because if you go to claims and not claiming the right thing, right? Some policy may be exempt and you're not qualified for, right?
Look at what's happened out where I'm from with the floods recently.
Right.
A lot of people weren't covered for the level of flooding, and that's simply because the insurance company knew more than they did. They'd researched more, and they wouldn't provide that next level of flooding insurance. So, again, puts you in a very tight spot when something like that happens.
Which is like not just getting the insurance, which is an activity, but being clear and what am I covered for. I think that's the key thing. Unfortunately, that's happened, but I think that's something that you need to review. And review means that's a skill set, not only just budgeting, but looking into the details. What am I covered for? I think that's the key. So I know we're jumping around a little bit, Ben, but hopefully it's giving a bit of value, because it's not the right order. Like you have to do this and that.
No. It's look, these I guess where I just. I think we're just trying to humanise some of these issues. I know finance can sort of bog people down a little bit if you the minutiae of it. I think if you can understand that both Alan and I we've had some experiences with on both the positive and the negative side of these situations.
Yep.
And I think giving them a human face sort of helps instill that in people. It helps them understand that. It can happen to you, and better to be prepared.
That's right. And what's the next point we're going to cover, Ben?
I think we've sort of been a bit of a Debbie Downer for the last little bit, talking about all the bad things that could happen, but talking about ways to improve your position. So not just maintaining and looking after what you've got, but then also putting in the time and the effort to expand what you have and to look at things with and to look after yourself with other people's money.
Yes.
So,
well, I think what you're referring to is probably investing, right? Mm-hmm. So I won't go into a specific asset class, but I think investing is probably a skill that you need to have, and you can't just sit all your money into just returning low returns. It's more exploring what can you do and get a better return than what you're getting in terms of cash or term deposits, right? Not providing financial advice in any way, but it's just like to increase your earnings, whether it's cash flow, whether it's capital growth. It's just doing something else with your money, right? Rather than having it in cash. If it's cash in a sense that it's physical bills, it's not going to double itself, is it?
That's right, yeah. Well, so, you put $100 under your bed, and in 50 years it's still $100.
But I mean,
you put it in an S&P,
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to deal with inflation. I mean, are you getting the same amount of purchasing power? That's what the government's talking about. But I guess the key thing is, hopefully, this is a driver to look at. And I'm not in any way recommending any investments. It's just having that skill set to get good at what you're returning in terms of your money.
And I guess it's what you're comfortable with as well. I mean, investment doesn't have to be property. I mean, if you've got if you want to put it in a term deposit,
correct.
If you want Bitcoin, or a crypto or bloody NFTs, if that's what makes you comfortable, as long as you do your research and you understand the risks, the pitfalls, and the possible gains, then everyone should make decisions that suit them.
And I think, look, a good website to really look at, and this is a government website, Money Smart, isn't it?
100%. Money Smart has analyzes everything. They're gaining absolutely nothing by giving you the advice, other than less people on welfare, I guess. But
no, it does talk about, even I think EFTs, talks about shares, talks about mortgage broking, everything that you can think of, up to superannuation. They really break down. I mean, the government's done a fantastic job, but again, it's not about, the resources. It's whether you're actually going to the website and actually reading it, and more importantly, implementing some of the strategies like really understanding and implementing into your investment game. That's all.
That's right. Yeah. And again, money invested is better than money saved, in my opinion.
Yeah. So next point, what do we have, Ben?
So I think when you're looking at things like budgets and insurance and investments, things like that, people tend to look at as big milestones. Buying a home, something like that. That's a huge achievement. I mean, that anyone should be proud of.
Yeah,
and commitment. Yes, but I think everyone needs. I don't know about you, but I also need little wins. Whether it's at work or in my private life, whatever I need a little win every now and then. If you're slogging it out 7 days a week and you don't feel like you've got anything out of it at the end, it can become
mundane.
It can be a slog. It's like ice skating uphill. So I think it's important that you set yourself some short-term goals. They don't have to be big things. If you don't have a savings account, go, hey, can I save $500 this month? But make them achievable. Make them based on what your income is, if you want to buy some shares, go, okay, well, I'm gonna use I'm gonna put $100 a week away, and then at the end of that month, I'm gonna go speak to someone about buying some shares, whatever it might be. They don't have to be huge goals. Not everyone's Warren Buffett, when it comes to investing. Do what suits you. Create a plan. Create short-term goals that'll make you feel like you've won. And don't throw them away afterwards. Stick to them. Once you've got that plan, once you've done 500, okay, 5,000.
Yeah.
Keep building.
I think what you're aiming for, what you're referring to is creating short-term goals, things that are achievable, and breaking it into bite-sized pieces. I mean, if I talk about my experience in, like November is probably 10 years in business, and every year's been profitable, and I've got multiple businesses now. It's not around, hey, Al's done all this. It's about, where did you start in the beginning, right? Of course, registering like with the ATO or the company or ASIC, to get the ABN. That's the first step. Like I never knew where I was going to be now, right? But it's like exactly what you said, like bite-sized pieces that you can achieve and reward yourself. Like you don't need to set $5,000 like what Ben said. Like, can you start off with $50, right? Can I have a meal I talk about the Uber, DoorDash, whatever it is. I'm not promoting it in any way. Like just like it's more like, hey, I'll get my takeaway, right? So that's something that you're budgeting within, so you feel like you're winning, right? And then you get the bigger ticket items, right? And then you work towards your way to a car and holidays and so forth. Like I have a friend, and I'm just talking about he's got a family of 2 kids, and he puts holidays as part of it as a must, whether the business is doing well or not. It's what he's budgeted for, right? So it's kind of like his goal as a must that he needs to go on a holiday to Fiji. He needs to do this, right? So if it's budgeted in, and it's whether business, I mean, his business is doing well, but even if it's not, it's budgeted for it. Then he realizes, hey, that's why we're doing these strategies and making it happen. I mean, right? That's the reason.
As we said before, budgets don't always have to be a bad thing. And holidays, I think, are something that, you need. A person needs time away. I know you run multiple businesses. I have multiple businesses. Sometimes I'm staring at my computer screen for 16 hours a day. If you're doing that 200 days a year, that's, sometimes it's better to be looking at the water as you're having a fish than it is to, I think this whole you've got to grind every minute of every day is wrong. I agree. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's the right way to go about it.
I don't think you need to check every minute. Like it's not like a business is turning over 100 million, like a few hundred, a billion, that you got to focus on every day what your accounts are reconcile. I mean, even for my businesses, which leads to point 4, right? One of the points is running your personal finances like a business. Now, does that mean every single day I'm checking my accounts and reconciliation? No, right? I mean, if it's like a simple one, like I said, is it quarterly? Right? I mean, for those that are single, of course, like you're checking it once a quarter or once a month, right? It's whatever, you're just keeping track, right? Am I doing well or doing not well, right? That's the kind of like, you're looking like, if you're losing weight, Ben, I'm just as an example, right? You go on the scales, right? You're checking, have I lost weight? Have I gained weight? What do I need to adjust, right? Yeah. So I think that's the key thing that we're trying to have. Like if you don't look at the scales at all, you're not really tracking about your weight at all, right? So therefore, running personal finances, I mean myself, because there's multiple businesses, as an insurance policy, I have a monthly meeting with my bookkeeper. That's kind of like where I'm checking, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? Not one of those like, you're not doing well, you have a drink. And then you're doing well, you still have a drink, right? So I think it's just like we said in the beginning, the truth will set you free. And that comes with your personal finances. And hopefully, like one of my legacies is to raise the financial intelligence when it comes to your finances. So hopefully we're through these podcasts and the resources and the tools and the webinars, seminars and so forth, we're giving you that muscle, right? Training for that financial muscle that you can build on.
Yeah, no, I that's exactly right. I think the idea of running your personal finances like a business is a great one. I think, when you're running a business, a payment comes in, you put away for GST, you put away for for tax, whatever you've already got commitments the moment that dollar crosses the line.
Yeah.
30-40% of it's gone. Okay, so you've got to make
skill set.
Yes, yeah, but you've got to be able to think the same way about every dollar that you earn personally. I think if you can come to that mindset, then you're not the way I phrased it there is exactly how a lot of people think about it. Oh, it's already gone. It's not. That's a responsibility taken care of.
Yeah, and it's accountability. I mean, personal finances, I'm talking now more in terms of business owner. When I meet with my bookkeeper, I always say, hey, where's my BAS, right? So BAS, in a sense, what's my GST commitment that I have to pay for that quarter? And what's my PAYG withholdings? Because I've got staff that I need to pay. So as I know that number, which is pretty much, I can see it through my accounting software, which I personally use is Xero, but it could be any other accounting software. But just know that you need to come up with that money, right? Because the government, the ATO, will collect that money from you, right?
Well, they're going to come knocking at some point.
Right. For those that are not running a business, it's like, how much tax is there enough withholdings from the employer? Is there other things that I need to contribute more? This is where you need to run your... we'll go through other stuff, which is super and so forth, but keeping in track, how much taxes do I have to pay, right, for this year? Have I paid enough through on my payslip? So these are the optics, or, not so much budgeting, but checking, right? Do I have to pay tax this year, or do I get a refund, right?
That's exactly right. Moving on to point 6, which we've already sort of talked about quite a bit, but, having that emergency fund. And we'll just talk briefly on that, but include the emergency fund in your budget. Put money away every week, month, fortnight, whatever your pay cycle is, and just ensure that you've got a little bit of a safety net.
Yeah.
Look, each one of whatever's a safety net for you is going to be different for someone else. Depending on what your expenses are, but even $1,000 saved can really take the pressure off if something comes up.
Yeah, and I feel it's building that psychological muscle, not when things come up, when your car breaks down, oh, here we go again, and how am I going to get the money, right? You already have that budgeted money to kind of, $1,000, yeah, no problems. I've got 3,000 saved, or whatever it is, right? It's just giving that financial certainty muscle that we're talking about, that, hey, you have to have available funds, right? But you got to be smart about it, right? So,
and it's willpower as well, not having that money sitting there. It's not, hey, I want to go on a holiday. That's not what that's for.
Yep.
I know sometimes going on a holiday can feel like is an emergency, but it's having that willpower, that strength to know what that money's for, leave it there, and just maintain the path, keep on trekking.
And what's priority? That's why it's emergency. People can die if you don't have the money for it, right? So I kind of relate back to a movie. I don't know if you've seen a Disney movie called Up. In the beginning, they had to save coins, and they were trying to save for an adventure, which never happened because all these doodads happened. What was it? It was a broken tire, it was a lot of other events. So this is where I imagine that movie, right? Your holidays may not be a priority, but you're taking some of the money from there if it's from the emergency fund. But if you have budgeted for that would still go ahead. So it's really important to have that clarity. Again, is it the symptom and what's the cause? I think that's the key. Now, if it's not working and it's negative after the budget, then we need to adjust a few things, right? Let's face it. If you're putting everything, I want the handbag, I want the holiday, I want everything else, the expenses are looking very beefed up and you don't have enough income to support it, that's when you really got to be, the truth will set you free. What is it that I'm willing to,
tighten
what's
your
more
belt
priority?
what you're going to tighten your belt on a little bit. And
that's it.
I think the whole idea of a budget is short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
But what I love about it, it just doesn't discriminate. This formula, income minus expenses, I don't, it. You could be Australian, Asian, any other ethnicity, right? Don't care the color, race, whatever it is. It happens to everyone. If it's talking about finance, income minus expenses.
It's
universal, right?
That's right.
All right. What's the next point we have, Ben?
So make saving a priority. If you've got a goal, and I'm talking more long-term goals here now, it's going to take some effort. It's going to take, focus, but make saving a priority. Mm-hmm. Where, a lot of people would put down oh, if I have anything left at the end of the month,
Then I'll save it.
then I'll save it. It's the wrong way. It's okay. So this is what I'm saving this month, and that should be part of everything you do. The first thing you should do is savings.
Yeah. I think, look, just going back to some of the personal development courses that I've done, it's about baking a cake, right? John bit the dog, or the dog bit John. I mean, definitely a different experience for both John and the dog, right? If the order of events. I mean, if this financial certainty muscle is something that you want to build, definitely that's something that you need to commit to, right? So savings would be the first, right? I mean, and it's like making a recipe. If you want to assure the quality of the cake when you're building, if you're following the recipe, it's not only the amount of ingredients that you need to have, it's the order of events that it's put in and made. And I think in terms of the financial building muscle, this is the key. Savings is a must. It's a building block. Like once you have that lump sum of savings, then we can talk about that investment. Again, not recommending what investments to get into. At least you've got a lump sum, whether it's X amount, to invest to and get a return on your investment.
Make that money work for you.
That's right.
Passive income's the best income.
Yes.
And speaking of another form of saving that really helps, because you can't touch it afterwards, or at least not for a little while.
Yeah, sure.
Is contribute a little bit extra to your superannuation.
Well, yes, it depends on the age group that you're in and what your risk tolerance, right? But the reason is speak to your accountant. It's more the taxation environment that you can be entitled to when you're contributing extra to your superannuation, rather than getting taxed and the government taking away from it straight away, right? So, I mean, these are the facts. I mean, Money Smart has it in there, like the concessional contribution for individual pay as you earn is 27,500. That's as of 2022, this financial year. Just quoting all these facts. So it's about, do you want it to be in a lower tax environment or higher? Depends on the income that you're earning, of course. But of course, if you're putting more money into that super, you can't touch it, like what Ben's saying. But then it helps you boost your retirement savings and reduce your taxable income potentially, right? So that's an extra bonus.
Yeah, and of course, and if that's that super's sitting with someone who's investing it for you already, if you're not ready to invest by yourself, I mean, that's a good way to sort of get things moving.
That's right. And what's next?
So I think the next one sort of leads me into a bit of a split course, but be mindful of your debt. It's very rare that most Australians have debt. Basically, everyone nearly has debt at this point, one way or another. But not letting it get on top of you. And we've mentioned things happen, but debt can build up very, very quickly if you let it. So the best thing is stay on top of it. Do what you need to make your repayments, because unlike a lot of the other things on this list, debt can be detrimental to your credit file.
Yeah, for sure.
And your credit file is definitely something that you need to maintain in this day and age. And we spoke about to begin with making sure you know where you stand, and it's the same thing with your credit file. I have a friend who had a bad debt for 9 years or so, about 9 years ago. And I said to him, mate, you should be fine. It's been 7 years now. It's going to fall off your credit file. No, he wouldn't do it. 2 years it took me to convince him to check his credit file. And his credit was perfect because he'd had that one mistake when he was a kid. And, but he was so scared of what he was going to see that, a lot of the things like buying a house and things like that he'd written off. Even though I told him, even though I'd said, mate, 7 years, whatever, or 5 years, whatever it might be, depending on the type of debt, it's going to fall off your record. He wouldn't have it because he was too scared of what he was going to see. And
I think that's where the emotion is getting into the way. And hopefully, we're giving you a lot of strategies, and it may sound good, and you're listening towards the end of the podcast, but it's more hopefully the emotions and the fear doesn't grab a hold of you and prevent you in doing something, right? like exactly what Ben and his mate, that example, it would have cost him 2 years. Like it could have been in the property market, or he could have done something, right?
Exactly right.
But it's again, these tools do check your credit file, right? Do know what your credit score is, right? I mean, that's where Ben and I are designing, like, you know, your scorecard, your financial scorecard. And I think it's quite important. Like, how do you measure? Like, I mean, if it comes to your academics, whether you're an engineer or whether you're a builder or you're an accountant, yes, you do a good degree, like bachelor, and that's the optics in how good you are or how much you know. But when it comes to finances, which is what we said, it's universal, right? We need to come up with a better scoring system in terms of how well you're going. I have clients, yes, I'm a mortgage broker, that come to me, they don't have a clue in terms of whether their credit score, right, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, right? I mean, that's kind of like, if we were to do that scorecard, that would add points to your scorecard. Be mindful of where you're at. I mean, that's really important. But going back to your point on debt, Ben, is I believe not all debt are equal. So that's one thing that we need to be mindful of. All right, there's good debt, there's bad debt. It's kind of like, you know, you talk about payday debt. That's probably the worst debt that we can even obtain, right? Or even a solution that we go to. Now I'm getting more common. It's like your zip pay, your afterpay, right? Those sort of debt. So I mean, this is definitely a credit facility. It's not something that we like to see when it comes to lending and so forth. But just be mindful, like the amount of debt, what type of debt. Are they good debt? Are they bad debt? If you're not sure what I'm talking about, then hopefully you can come and join us in our live webinar or some seminar and get to an expert that can kind of clarify that. And very important, because the amount of interest charged is very different on these different levels of debt.
And of course, certain debts, like you said, are positive. If you're staying on time, that's building. That's a positive for you. You know, if you can stay on top of this debt. So just be aware of, like you said, the type of debt, the amount, and whether it's feasible for you. Because, you know, although institutions do run you through a lot of parameters to make sure that you're there, you know, sometimes things are a little aren't as that clear, and you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble. Yeah. So moving on to point 10, our final point for the day, probably a good time to sort of wrap up. But and you've mentioned it before, but first of all, you said, you know, make sure you know where you're at. But secondly, is know where you're going, know where you are all the time. So reviewing your finances, not only will you get a nice little kick to see that you're going in the right way, in a positive way, but, you know, I'll put it this way. For marketing, when we put a marketing campaign together, we launch it, and now I've seen some of the most amazing marketing plans in your life, okay? Some of the best you'll ever see. And you go, this is a winner. This, we can't lose. You get 2 weeks into the campaign and going, this is terrible. This is not going the way we expect.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, so the difference is in finances, it's pretty hard for things not to go to plan if you do the right things. Okay. So review your finances like I review my marketing reports. Okay. So you know where you always are. So you know if there's changes that need to be made, you can make them quickly. You don't want to be going down a path too long where it's too late and you know you've already made the mistake. So review your plans, review your finances consistently.
Yeah, and I think, look, that's where when you're going great, that's fantastic. You've been reviewing it, you should celebrate. But if it's not going the right way, you really got to beat yourself up and go, hey, man, is this really where I want to be? And often because you left it too late and you know you're not doing well, right? You're kind of like prolonging it. I just don't want to see the actual results. And sometimes you left it too late, like 6 months and 12 months when you could have rectified it in month 1, right?
That's right. And I guess a lot of the time this is because people aren't being honest with themselves. If you start off being honest with yourself, speak to the right people, understand what your plans are, it's pretty hard to go wrong if you've got the right people on your side. But you know, if you're not being honest with yourself about your spending or things like that, you're constantly missing your budgets, then yeah, I mean, you might be in trouble.
Well, I think that's where I kind of still review when I was at an early young age when I had my first property, where it's at in terms of net worth, and I'm still tracking it today, right? So I mean, that skill set hasn't left me. So if you're taking, I'm sure like the likes of very successful business people, they still track, right? Whether it's through an accountant. If they're not tracking, that's a bit silly. Like, I don't think so. How can they track, like, if they're doing well or not? So therefore, that skill set needs to be translated. It doesn't matter, like, again, universal language, right? This is a skill set that we must have. So it's tracking the budget, expenses, how well you're doing. If you're not sure, go and talk to an expert, or like, join with us one of the live webinars or the seminars that you can really get that clarity in terms of what I really need to work on, right? Because there's so many products out there. Like even the banks are doing it, tracking what you're spending, right? In terms of the like apps and so forth. But the key thing is, I don't care what app you use, but how often do you track it? And am I going well? Am I going not well? I think that's the decision.
How many apps out there now where you can set notifications and reminders if something goes wrong? You don't. It's not like you have to be staring at every second of the day, but you can get a text, get someone to send you an app to send you a text message if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And that being said, there's apps out there that do that for your credit file. If something changes on your credit file, that's a great idea.
That's right. But it's not the strategy that will set you free. It's what you're willing to implement.
Well, I mean, if you're worried that something's going to go wrong, that's probably because you haven't put the right steps in place.
That's right. So, I mean, we can talk all day in terms of all these different strategies, but hopefully you got some value out of our session today. What's next, Ben?
So, look, a couple of things coming up. Next podcast, we're actually going to be getting in a few special guests who work within the housing industry, so we can have a little bit of a roundtable. People who come from the real estate industries, construction, mortgage broking. So, that'll be. I'm really excited to see, what sort of conversation that will come up in that. The next thing we've got as well is we're working on a new product suite to help everyone out there achieve this financial fitness, and we're calling it the scorecard.
Yep. Financial scorecard.
Financial scorecard. So we're going to give you the ability to view where you're at financially, using some of the ideas that you've heard here with us today. Then we're going to give you the skills and the information to get training. Whip that that tubby financial body into a lean, mean financial machine. I should have practiced that pun, I think. That's saying. But yeah, look, we're working on this at the moment. Big things are coming in the next month to launch it. We're really excited to share it with you. Check out the ZENRG Facebook page and other social media. Keep track of what's going on. You'll be seeing more there. The next podcast is coming in 2 weeks, at which point we'll give you a little bit of an update on the launch times for the financial sports card.
Yeah, I think follow us, like us. You can have all different social medias we're in there. But I think if you want to I think learning, right? If I'm not wrong, Ben, it's about immersing yourself and dedicating that time. It's about learning a language, right? So how often, if you really want to learn, for example, Italian, for example, do you learn it spaced out every week, right? And 1 hour for 52 weeks, or you just go in there and just fully immersed 52 hours or a weekend or a week in Italy. With no other language options but to speak Italian, right?
What I took away from that is that I should definitely move to Italy for a few months.
Well, I think the key thing is anything that you commit to do, I think you just need to immerse yourself around people and then the language and the strategies. But more importantly, like I said in the beginning, it's shifting your mindset. I mean, if it's going well, that's fantastic. We can take it to the next level. For those that are not going so well in terms of their finances, I think it's one key thing that we're going to work on. What's that psychology behind it? Or what's not so much the symptom, but what's the source? And give you some tools. And if you implement, then we can get you on the right track. Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Okay. Al, well, thanks for today. That's another episode wrapped up.
That's it.
I'll add all the contact details and everything, all the information at the bottom of this podcast.
Yep.
And we will see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben.